First off, let me begin by saying that I totally and initially entered this competition for the hopes of receiving the monetary prize. Then when I realized that I actually had to make a video that included actual fact and quality history about Kashmir, I cracked down on every resource I could find, which included the huge Bible-like text, Sociocultural and Religious Traditions of Kashmiri Pundits, which demonstrated that Kashmir literally is a smorgasbord of culture, resulting from its history. We're talking about food, rituals, yatras, Vedic cosmology, and traditions that have been around for centuries. So, utilizing information from the internet, these primary sources, aka my parents, and author Rahul Pandita's personal account of the Kashmiri Exodus, I present to you the history of Kashmir and one of its greatest rulers. Beginning with the early origins of Kashmir, it was 12th century Kashmiri Pandit scholar Kalhana who authored Rajata Rangini, or the River of Kings, and believed Kashmir was a lake, drained and offered by Brahma to be inhabited by Brahmins, or those who are conscious. Other accounts even state that a demon, Jalodbhava, was killed by Brahma's son Kashyap, who successfully cut the Varamula mountains, hindering water from filling the plains of Kashmir. While Kalhana's account traces mythical times to dynasties, what I found from other sources is that the history of Kashmir was more or less broken into different periods, affected by the empires and the rulers who shaped its future. It was after the Neolithic and Vedic period that originated in the depths of the valley that Buddhism and Hinduism made an appearance and expanded in Kashmir, and it was post-320 BC that Kashmir saw an influx of progress as Tibetan and Chinese pilgrims visited Kashmir, spreading their influence and philosophy. Thereafter, it was in the 7th century that Shaivism came to light, nurtured by great scholars such as Vasugupta and Abhinavagupta. It was a religion based off tantric traditions and Vedic cosmology. Now, according to Rahul Pandita's amazing novel, the two golden phases in Kashmir's history were during the reigns of impressive military leader and ruler LalitaDitya Muktapida and later ruler Avantivarman. LalitaDitya Muktapida ruled for about 4 decades in the early 8th century AD, from about 724 or 725 to 760 CE. I mean, this man was what most teenagers of today's generation would consider literally savage. Described as a universal ruler and monarch, LalitaDitya ruled over the Karkota Empire, backed by impressive years of consolidating power through military conquest. Many historians believed he wished for world conquest, as he invaded and conquered places ranging from Tibet and Iran to South India and the Sindh, overtaking the Arabs. According to Kalhana, the most significant military exploit of LalitaDitya was the defeat of Yashovarman and the acquisition of his extensive kingdom. LalitaDitya is said to tear up Yashovarman from the root. Kalhana credits LalitaDitya with other military accomplishments as well. After defeating Yashovarman, LalitaDitya proceeded east to the Great Ocean and reached the country of Kalinga. He received elephants from the king of Gauda, and he also is said to have conquered some unspecified islands in the 7 Konkanas later on, moving as far as Dwarka and Gujarat, continuing his conquest of other countries. Furthermore, LalitaDitya was a builder. One of his greatest achievements includes the creation of the Sun Temple at Marthand in South Kashmir, standing even today after being ravaged by invaders and continuing to be considered a cherished archaeological site. He built canals and also built his capital near the sacred shrine of Kir Bhavani, naming it Parhisapur, or City of Pleasure. Building fine temples within the valley, LalitaDitya had a talent for art and architecture that influenced centuries of future Kashmiri Hindu craft. After LalitaDitya passed, there were other adequate successors, such as Shankarvarman, or son of Avantivarman. However, in 950 AD, when King Kamgupta ascended the throne of Kashmir, he married Princess Dida, daughter of the ruler of Lohara, and thus the Lohara dynasty came to power, allowing Islam to gradually assimilate itself into Kashmir. From 1089 to 1101 AD, King Harsha ruled Kashmir. Although a good ruler, poet, and lover of music and luxury, many people suffered during his rule. There was famine, plague, and ultimately Harsha and his son were both murdered. The last Hindu ruler of Kashmir was Udyan Dev. Described as a warrior princess by Kashmiri Pandit author Rakesh Kole, Kotarani was Udyan Dev's chief and ruled until 1339, practically governing the state. Shah Mir from Swat, who rose during King Sahadev's earlier rule, led to Kota's downfall. Although she was intelligent, Kota was later defeated by Shah Mir at Jaipur when he held an uprising. It was her death in 1339 that essentially set a precursor for Muslim rule and ended the Hindu period in Kashmir. I cite from Pandita's novel when I say this vak, which resonated with many Pandits as Islam infused itself post-14th century into many Kashmiri practices. LalitaDitya, a poetess saint, stated, Shiv chui thali thali rozan, mozan hyonda the Musulman, meaning God pervades every particle, every being. Don't distinguish between a Hindu and a Muslim. However, even with LalitaDitya's warning, atrocities occurred in the thousands as towards the end of the 14th century in 1389 CE, a fanatical ruler, Sultan Sikandar, took over the reins of Kashmir and brutality and terror spread across the state. He attempted to destroy LalitaDitya's Marthan temple, impose taxes on his Hindu subjects, and ban the practice of Hinduism. Hindu texts were destroyed, and the number of Pandits massacred was so large that 7 mounds of sacred thread worn by them were burnt. It was during his terrible reign that the Pandits would cry, Nabhatto aham, Nabhatto aham, or I am not a Pandit, I am not a Pandit. Islamic scholars soon flocked to the valley. Mosques sprung up like flowers, and Islam gained influence. Sikandar was succeeded by his son Ali Shah, and after him, his brother Zayn ul Abidin took over in 1420 AD. Ul Abidin proved to be tolerant. Legend has it that Sri Bhatt, a Pandit physician, cured the king from a mysterious ailment, and upon his recovery, Ul Abidin asked Bhatt to seek any gift. Bhatt asked for all restrictions to be taken away from Pandits, and the king readily agreed. Pandits who had fled during Sikandar's rule returned, and many were even appointed as Ul Abidin's administrators. This peace was short-lived, however, as the Chuk dynasty, established by Lankar Chuk, came into power during the late 15th century, looting, plundering, and murdering thousands of Pandits as Sikandar had done only a century earlier. In 1589, Kashmir was conquered by the Mughals, led by Emperor Akbar, who proved to be progressive, entertaining the people's desires and building a new town near Hariparbit called Nagar Mughal. His son, Jehangir, was even more enamored by Kashmir's natural beauty, his dying wish being Kashmir, nothing else. Another Mughal emperor, Aurangzeb, visited Kashmir in 1665 and ruled it from 1658 onwards for 49 years. His reign was filled with revolt and rebellion, unfortunately, and there were phases in which the Pandits were persecuted. Then, yet again, us Pandits could not catch a break. From 1752 onwards, the valley was ruled by the Afghans for nearly 7 decades. One of the Afghan governors, Asad Khan, would drown Pandits, tying them up by 2 in grass sacks and sinking them in Dal Lake. Musulmans would throw rocks at the pitcher set upon the Hindu's head, and when it broke, the Pandit would be blinded with filth. It was during this horrendous period that Kashmir saw mass conversions. Pandits were given the choice of leaving Kashmir, dying, or accepting Islam. Afghan rulers would surround Pandits with swords, asking them to convert. Those who would not were put to death immediately, and those who complied were forced to eat the meat of a freshly slaughtered calf, their sacred threads snapped. Following Afghan rule, in 1819, Sikh rule prevailed and the Dogra dynasty came to power. Dogra rulers were benevolent to Pandits, treating them fairly, but were rough to Muslim subjects, many Muslims becoming unpaid laborers. Maharaja Pratap Singh was one of the more progressive rulers. Ascending the throne in 1885, Singh modernized Kashmir, building the 2 mountain roads and linking the state with the rest of India. A drainage system was created as well by creating flood channels, and colleges were also established within the state. Hari Singh, nephew of Pratap Singh, soon ascended the throne, proving to be the same progressive ruler as his uncle. He embraced modernization and the new aura in Kashmir that produced both political consciousness and parties. 1947. One of the most important years in Indian history as India was finally liberated from the British. However, this liberation led to the consequence of civil war in northern India. Kashmir was subjected to barbarism once more as the Pakistani government invaded the state. A ceasefire was finally agreed in 1948, however relations between India and Pakistan remained bitter, and eventually led to 3 more wars over the Kashmir territory in 1965, 1971, and 1999. And of course, on a more personal note, as my parents were part of this event, we cannot forget the mass exodus that occurred in January 1990 as many Pandits fled their homes when Kashmiri Muslims stormed the valley. The creation of this video has allowed me to see the evolution of Kashmir from great rulers like LalitaDitya to dictators like Sultan Sikandar. It taught me to be conscious of my history and maintain a sense of Kashmiriyat, as I and all Pandits have a responsibility to uphold our history. Other than that, I feel like I did pretty A-okay, and it's a wrap.